Raptors Twitter has lost its mind. RJ Barrett has come under some pretty serious allegations from a Twitter user that I refuse to address directly. Chris Boucher claps back for the second time in 12 months. And we need to talk about this. We need to talk about how to navigate this because I don't know about you, but when I was in school, nobody gave me a blueprint or a handbook on how to navigate mental health on social media. And I got to tell you, I just spent 6 hours doom scrolling social media and I feel terrible. I don't know how to explain it. I gotta, I gotta tell you, there is something wrong with this algorithm. I mean, we can talk about all of it, and I'm gonna give you by the end of this, honestly, I'm gonna give you a nice little navigation out of it because there is a film and there's a director that can solve your problems. And I'm gonna share what he talks about and his messaging behind it. So this is gonna be a pretty spiritual live. I deliberately did not want to do this at a time when I knew people would be up. I don't want this video to go crazy. I don't want it to blow up because frankly, the more people repeat this RJ Barrett stuff, the worse it's gonna get for him. And honestly, we've seen this stuff with Scotty Barnes on social media for about 2.5 years. And we know that he heard it. Like that's the destructive part of this is, when I was growing up, and I'm not ever gonna defend the media. And honestly, in a part, I blame the media for not doing their job, thus opening up the pathway or even the utility for social media. But there used to be a time when crap like this had to get verified through 18 different sources that there was actually something of substance before it became so viral. You couldn't just scream out of your car or, print something without it being true. I mean, to some extent, it had to be verified. I'm not saying they didn't print lies in the newspaper. Certainly, propaganda has been printed in the newspaper for decades, but it feels really out of control at this point where I could literally say anything. And because it is aligning with the homophobia or racial bias or something that some person holds, and the algorithm naturally is going to promote something that's going to be shared a lot, that we're just going to have thousands and thousands and thousands of people now. And I'm honestly, here's the sad thing. RJ Barrett is like, I'm not here to say this is true or not true. Obviously, I lean 99.9% this is absolute bullshit that should blow over. But where's due process here, right? I mean, this is a family, RJ Barrett's family specifically, that lost their son last year, Nathan Barrett, rest in peace. And now we got some clout chasing lunatic who's allegedly owed $17,000 accusing RJ Barrett of using him for, sexual gratification or whatever the hell it was. And I mean, it's viral. It's so viral right now. And everyone's profiting off of it. And that's I guess that bothers me a little bit. That people are just profiting off of it. Hang on. And this is not me trying to put on blast every single content creator who talked about it, because technically I'm talking about it right now. But you know, there needs to be some sort of context here because you can address something like this and you can say, "Oh, it's not true. It's not happening, whatever." But take a look at this. Hold on one sec. Let me pull this up. I mean, this headline right here. Let me pull let me pull the Raptors Digest thing off. And the allegation, of course, is that he, owes this guy $17,000. This guy's now trying to extort him. He name drops his accountant or some bullshit like that. And unfortunately, with the current state of Raptors Twitter, which I think is one of the most toxic fan bases on the planet, I'm not trying to call us out, but really it's been bad for a while now. And if you need any evidence, look no further than half the fan base having a collective mental breakdown over a loss to the Washington Wizards in preseason and basically turning on the entire roster and suggesting Grady Dick is an ass player and all that stuff. It's so bipolar and it's so reactionary. And it's the problem is, you live for this moment and you forget what you said like 2 days later. It's like this guy's the best player in the world. And then 2 days later, this guy's the worst player in the world. It's like I make a post about Scotty Barnes being a top 15 player, get a lot of consensus. Scotty Barnes dribbles the ball off his foot once. People are like, he's ass, trade him. He's not a real star. Like, what are we doing here? Can this type of emotional instability be good for your health? Can it be good for your relationships? Is it like leading to a higher divorce rate? Is it leading to higher like self off rates? I don't know, but this cannot be healthy for the average mind. It cannot be healthy to hold such bipolar opinions on a day to day basis and to fluctuate this much. But I just know that there is a certain segment of this fan base that is going to take this shit and is going to freaking bring it up for the next 20 years whenever RJ Barrett is brought up. And even it doesn't matter. Look at what happened with Josh Giddey. I mean, look, I'm going to be honest. When it comes to child abuse, I'm very sensitive to that. Like it is something that has poked very, very, very dear in my heart because I had friends when I was younger and I know that that was their experience and I don't fuck around with that stuff. So whenever there is any allegation of a guy who's like 21 or 22 messing around with a girl who's like 15, I'm off that. Like if it's even verified, and especially with Josh Giddey, where it was like the pictures were there and stuff, I still don't like Josh Giddey. I still don't like him. He's been cleared. He's been totally cleared. Legally, he's been cleared. The internal investigation cleared. That dude will never stop getting those allegations because it just went so viral. It went so big. People made up their minds right away. They had a picture, they made up their minds. This dude right here with the RJ Barrett situation, he has a video, and please don't search it. I'm describing it for you. Don't give it any more play than it's already been played. You know what I mean? This dude brings up a video where he brings up his phone. He shows a whole bunch of PayPal payments and Cash App payments from Rowan Barrett, and it's like $700, $500, $400, whatever. And he's like, "Hey, your accountant owes me $17,000. This video will be deleted when you owe me." It sounds really legit. And you know what? Most of us presumptively would assume that why would anyone do this if it weren't true? We think about ourselves, but some of us are narcissists. Some of us do shit like this for attention. Some of us just want to see the world burn, to borrow a quote from The Dark Knight. And what does this guy have to lose? Who the fuck is he? He's nobody. I don't know his name. I'm not going to repeat his name. Frankly, I heard his name 6 hours ago, already forgot it. Don't fucking know who he is. But RJ Barrett is, I mean, think about how hard this guy had to work. Think about how hard his family's had to work. Think about what his family means to Canadian basketball. And now his entire family, in the midst of dealing, with the death of Nathan Barrett, have to deal with this bullshit. And again, it's probably going to blow over. It's probably going to be nothing by tomorrow. He's probably going to have to delete it. They're probably going to threaten to sue him, and then it's going to be unfounded and blah 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 blah. But some segment of Twitter is going to bring this shit up every single time. You know what I mean? Like there was one accusation about Chris Bosh, and I swear to God, that guy couldn't stand in a slightly effeminate way without people bringing that shit up. Like, and Chris Bosh allegedly was completely straight. It's a very homophobic, weird place. It's a very racist place. I feel Twitter, in general. Like all this pause culture. Like I get it, and I understand it, but like you don't understand. Like this is not a role player. You know what I mean? It's not John Amici. It's not Dwight Howard after he retired. This is a 24-year-old in his prime trying to ascend to becoming an all-star. So if this in fact were true, even remotely, this is the type of thing that can absolutely destroy your career, especially if you didn't want it out. I don't know, man. Say what you will. There's still a large segment of NBA players that have a real issue with one of their teammates being gay. That's just true. It shouldn't be that way in 2024. It really shouldn't be that way, but it is that way. For a lot of players, if you were to ask them on air, yeah, sure, they'll say the right thing. But if you ask them off the air, they'd be like, fuck no. No, I'm not sharing a locker room. So when an allegation like this comes out, it can become a real distraction. I'm sure, every single Raptor whose family is connected to has been like, yo, your boy straight? Is your boy straight? Every single player on his team has seen this. Which brings me to my next point, Chris Boucher. Look, it is so clear to me that it is, if I had a son who was in the NBA, if I had a best friend who was in the NBA, the first bit of advice after get good sleep would be, please have somebody else manage your social media and literally do not turn that app on. I would be like, yo, you need to Kawhi Leonard this shit. It's not good for you. I'm so glad that Scotty Barnes turned off his mentions on social media right now as he prepares for the season. He's in ghost mode right now, and I love it. I'm so glad. Okay. Because that dude has taken massive abuse on social media. But the idea that one accusation within 8 minutes can spiral so quickly out of control with no evidence, freaking fake screenshots. You know how easy it would be to for me to pull up a screen and like just make it look like some NBA athlete's been paying me to keep a secret. It's not hard. AI, deep fakes, shit, man. We are heading into a really weird world. And as this shit gets more advanced, I would not be surprised if you can fucking make a video of these allegations. And good luck trying to disprove that once the court of public appeal has, arrived to a consensus. The Chris Boucher thing is kind of weird to me. I don't think I said anything out of bounds in my last video about Chris Boucher, but naturally, I had an issue with how Chris played yesterday. So I voiced it. That's the same thing I did, 2-3 weeks into last year's season when I said that the Raptors were 3-0 in games that Chris Boucher missed, which was true. They pretty much lost every single time he played. This was very early in the season, and I would think they were 3-0 with Otto, and then they were 0-4 in games Chris Boucher played. And when I tweeted that stat out, Chris responded and he said, bet, something like that. He's like, I see that. I get it. I respect it, whatever. And I was like, that's respectful and that's cool. Today's was a little bit further, right? I basically took an issue with some of his off ball movement, some of his decision making, which, I mean, honestly, I'm not alone. I'm pretty sure I haven't said anything in that video that his coaches haven't told him 100 times over, but I'm the bad guy now. And he comes and plays a victim on social media saying, I don't understand why y'all want to, y'all really want to have me traded. And then big smiley face. And then all his fans are trying to DM me and attack me. Like, we can't criticize now. Okay, that's cool. Fair. I'm not crying. I'm not crying victim. I stood on business. I stand by what I said, 10 toes down. I'll say it 50 times over and I'd say it to his face. I'm not William Lou. Please understand me. I'm not that guy. Okay. I'm not someone who's going to call out a player. Like, I kept this same energy when Fred's family came at me. I stood 100% on my nuts when that shit came out and Fred VanVleet's family started to message me and be like, what are you saying about my boy? I was like, bro, tell him to fucking pass the basketball and stop betting on himself. Like, I didn't just soften up. I'm not going to say the same thing with Chris. I'm not scared of this. Like, this is not that serious to me. Like, this is basketball analysis. This is what I want to do for a living, and that's just it. And if Chris Boucher is gonna, if my God, I can't even imagine. Like I was critical of Scotty's game. I didn't glaze him yesterday. I was like, oh my God, what a great shot. Even the one shot that everyone was going nuts over, I was like, I don't even like the shot. So personally, I don't think it's out of bounds as long as you keep it above the belt. Did I go too far sometimes? Yeah, definitely. And I'm trying to learn from that. But I don't think criticizing someone's decision making and saying they were a large part of why you lost the game is out of bounds. I don't think it's hating. I don't think it's chasing the guy. And you know what the thing is about Chris Boucher that's so disappointing? How badly the Raptors could use a player like Chris Boucher. Man, they could. A shot blocking, run in transition, expiring contract, who can protect the rim and help shore up some of the issues that Kelly Olynyk has protecting the basket. Hell yeah. Could really use that. On this talent depleted roster, hell yes, you could use that. You could use a vet. You could use a coach and, an extra, hand in coaching. And I don't want to say this to Chris Boucher to, his face or on Twitter, but dude, like, you're a minimum contract guy next year. Like, let's not gas it up. Like if you don't make serious corrections to your game, last year the Raptors tried to trade him. They couldn't find a second round pick. If you can't net a second round pick in a trade on the trade market, you cannot net a contract in the NBA above a minimum contract. He's going to be in the same position as Bruno Fernando. And I don't know if he realizes that, but I hope he does for his career. Because contrary to how I talk about Chris Boucher, the basketball player, I really respect Chris Boucher, the person, a lot. A lot. I have a lot of respect for any person who's a late bloomer in life, who grinds the way he does, and who works as hard as he does. I really like Chris Boucher. Can't stand Chris Boucher, the basketball player. Love Chris Boucher, the person. Love Chris Boucher Foundation. Love Chris Boucher, the teammate and the friend to Scotty. Like, he was one guy who, I think when Stephen A. Smith went nuts on Scotty Barnes being the face of the league, he was a guy who actually stood up for it publicly, and I appreciate that. I appreciate the fact that Scotty has a vet that he trusts and that he likes, and that a teammate that's cool with him, and he seems like a really cool guy. I've watched his podcast with Will Lou and all that stuff. It's cool, but this is basketball. Criticizing basketball, I'm not criticizing Chris Boucher the person. Criticizing Chris Boucher the basketball player. Okay, the collective meltdown, the reactivity, the quick, viral reaction to everything, the knee jerk stuff. I want to share with y'all a solution to this. Disconnect. Disconnect, man. Let me share a word with you that means probably nothing, but hopefully can reshape your life. And it is from the Hopi language, Koyaanisqatsi. And it means crazy life, life in turmoil, life out of balance, life disintegrating, a state of life that calls for another way of living. Now, this is a movie. Now, the word is obviously from the Hopi language, which is like a native language that is indigenous to the United States. But the film is a film from 1982. Now, my ex girlfriend turned me on to this film, and I never wanted to watch it because it seemed really boring. It's basically like a still life documentary. And the other night, I watched it, and I got to share with you my reaction to this. Now, basically, the film is about technology taking over nature, right? It's about humankind's relationship with nature. And basically, it was made in 1982, so this predates social media. And holy crap, if the director Godfrey Riggio, who we're going to hear from in 2 seconds here, explaining what his movie means, if he could see where we are today, and he's I think 88 years old, he just made a film last year, so he's still hammering this home. But he talked a lot about the alienation of a human being from the world in which the human being inhabits, and how technology is not really an accessory, but rather has sort of replaced nature. Like every time you wake up, you don't even realize how many times you interact with technology on a day-to-day basis. I'm not just talking your cell phone. I'm not talking, your apps. I'm not talking all that stuff. I'm talking everything. Like everything is technology, bro. Like your elevator, all of it. How anyone ever tell you to touch grass? Yeah, there's a reason for that. That's natural. Touch your barefoot to grass, you feel so much better. But most of us, we fall asleep on our phones. We wake up to our phones. We are just completely disconnected from our bodies. We don't understand the vessels through which we're moving through life. So listen to Godfrey Reggio. I'm screwing up his last name because I'm not sure if he's Italian. So I don't want to say it in an Italian way and then he's not Italian. But anyways, so listen to what he's had to say.
To show is that the main event today is not seen by those of us that live in it. We see the surface of the newspapers, the obviousness of conflict, of social injustice, of the market, welling up of culture. But to me, the greatest event, or the most important event of perhaps our entire history, nothing comparable in the past to this event is fundamentally gone unnoticed. And the event is the following: the transiting from old nature, or the natural environment as our host of life for human habitation, into a technological milieu, into mass technology as the environment of life. So these films have never been about the effect of technology, of industry on people. It's been that everyone, politics, education, the financial structure, the nation state structure, language, the culture, religion, all of that exists within the host of technology. So it's not the effect of, it's that everything exists within. It's not that we use technology, we live technology. Technology has become as ubiquitous as the air we breathe, so we are no longer conscious of its presence. So what I decided to do in making this film is to rip out all the foreground of a traditional film, the foreground being the actors, the characterization, the plot, the story. I tried to take the background, all of that just support it like wallpaper, move that up into the foreground, make that the subject, ennoble it with the virtues of portraiture, and make that the present. So we looked at traffic as the event. We looked at the organization of a city as the equivalent of what a computer chip looks like. We looked at acceleration and density as qualities of a way of life that is not seen and goes unquestioned. Life unquestioned is life lived in a religious state.
Okay. How many of you question your beliefs on a day-to-day basis? How many of you actually question your biases? How many of you question the things that you were taught? You know, most of us have an anchoring bias. That's why we don't get over those allegations that we hear. You know, OJ Simpson was initially cleared of his, accusations. People didn't stop viewing him that way, and probably rightfully so. But even the fact that I'm saying probably rightfully so determines or demands some sort of self exploration on my part. You know, one of my greatest curiosities as a young person was understanding World War II. You know, I don't know why I gravitated towards it so much, but ever since I was 5 or 6 years old, we went to Germany and there was just so much guilt in the streets and you could feel it. Like you can still feel it actually. It's quite omnipresent, if you will. And you often wonder how people did that to other people, you know? Like you wonder. There's clips on social media, of people being beaten in the Middle East or, what's happening with Gaza and Israel and of course, there's the atrocities of the Balkan Wars in the 90s and all the horror stories that you hear of, this person did this to this person, their neighbor. They lived next to them for 10 years. But the minute that war happened, they weren't neighbors anymore. And you think to yourself, how do people do this? How do people become so tribal? How do people, cannibalize each other this way? And I think it's worth saying that when there is a spark and there is a dehumanization of who you're talking about, right? So obviously, when we talk about certain players, there's a dehumanization factor. Like they're just avatars on our screen. We're not really talking about the people, we're just talking about them. And there's a sort of desensitization that comes from having to tackle 500 controversies per day. It's really endless. If you've set your timeline up to give you bullshit, like if you constantly react to a certain type of content, you're gonna get more and more and more of it. And you basically, and I don't care if this is TikTok or Twitter or YouTube or whatever app you use, I promise you, you have some control, not all control, but some control over the types of stuff you see. And you need to manage that actively, not passively, actively. If you're seeing a lot of images of women that you don't want to be seeing on your app because it's distracting you from your relationship and it's messing up your brain, you need to block those accounts. When you see it, you need to train your app. Before your app trains you, you need to train your app. It's the same thing with social media. I'm going to give you a okay. So there's an NBA player that I talk to very often and I sometimes, I think this was like 2 years ago, I would send him like some crap. And anytime someone would send some, like, would say some bullshit about him, I would send it to him. And I think about the third time, like the first few times, he's like, LOL, fuck that shit, blah, blah, blah. The third time I did it, he's like, bro, don't send me that. Bro, don't send me that. Like, don't send me that shit no more. And I learned not to do that. And it really forced me to kind of reflect and be like, what kind of a negative piece of shit am I that every single time I see something negative about this guy, I have to fucking send it to him? That's not good. That's not healthy. And I'm glad that he put that boundary in place because it allowed me to understand how to be like a better friend. That is what I mean. So you kind of, if you're gonna treat this app like a sort of AI buddy of yours, you need to train your AI buddy to be a more productive member of your life. Which means here's a nice little rule for social media. Don't quote tweet shit that you don't like. Just don't do it. Just don't do it. If you see the RJ allegations and shit, don't quote tweet it and be like, this is bullshit. Because now there's like that post now gets a push on the algorithm. There's a reason I'm not putting that I'm not putting that user or whatever on the screen right now, because it's like an energy you're feeding into it. It's like a snowball, you know what I mean? Like, you don't want a snowball to keep rolling down the hill because it just gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So that's the same thing. Don't react to it. Don't comment on it. It's taken me a really long time to figure this out because I used to react to everything. I'm not acting like I'm totally over it. I definitely occasionally will I'll fall for the fucking rage bait, and I'll be like, "This is stupid," and then I'll feel terrible about it because that's not productive at all. That's not life force productive, and I haven't done anything. And all I've done is actually, you know what I mean? It's like those. Sometimes there's those posts on social media which post like an obviously fake stat, like Oprah Winfrey is the richest person in the world or something like that. And then, like a whole bunch of people are really angry and they're just like, no, she's not. This is bullshit. Well, guess what? Now that user unfortunately just got paid, you know? It's stupid. One of my mentors actually taught me something a few weeks ago that I would like to share with you. Said that, and I think it was about 55, right? So he predates social media quite a bit. I'm 36, so it's been a big part of my life. Social media has been around since I was a teenager. So, I mean, whether we're talking MySpace, we're talking, Meet Me in TO or Facebook or, you know, all those pages. They were all technically social media. None of them quite capitalized on it the way Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook have, but they were the infancy stages. So ultimately, it's like your life and your social interactions on screen. So he said, you know, this is what he said. He said, back in my day, the product was the product, right? Like you would get you would pay some amount of money for a product, and that was basically commerce. Like that was just simple economics. Like you went to the store, you bought a banana, you paid for a banana. You bought a lemon, you paid for a lemon. You went to the lemonade stand, you paid for lemonade. You went to the coffee shop, you paid for the coffee shop. There wasn't really any onus on making you the product, right? But now you go to the grocery store, they want your address because they want you in your system because you need to be monetized somehow. You go to the coffee shop, they want to get you into a loyalty program because you are now the product. And that's what you don't understand. And I'm going to tell you something right now. Every single time you are afraid of something you read on the internet about a financial collapse, or I mean, I worked at a hedge fund. I know exactly how this whole bullshit works. Let me give you a little trade secret. So you basically pump up a stock, right? This is an old pump and dump. You tell people that this stock is like the next, like, you find a stock that went just popped like 2 weeks ago, right? You find a sad sack of suckers who wish they'd gotten in on that stock. And then you find a stock that kind of looks like that stock. And then you start posting a lot about how this next stock is just like that old stock and it's going to pop the same way. So I'll give you an example. So I don't know, let's just call a company Abbott Laboratories. Let's say Abbott Laboratories went from $1 a share to $4 a share or $6 a share. Actually, sometimes it works when it's more extreme. So, like, let's say they went from $1 a share to $10 a share, which obviously is like $1,000 growth. Sorry, 1,000% growth. And let's say it happened in a week, and you had a whole bunch of people who were like really bummed out that they missed on this 1,000% growth opportunity, and they're like kicking themselves. So suddenly, there is a question: where do I find the next Abbott Laboratories? What's the next stock that this is going to happen for? And so you find, Celos Pharmaceuticals, and you say, well, all the trend lines and all the things are the same for this one. And so what happens? You start spreading the rumor that Celos is about to get some sort of big approval, or they're about to beat estimates, or they're about to get big FDA approval, or you have to find an interval or an event to build up to. And then you say the same thing that happened for Abbott is going to happen for Celos. Okay. So now people start buying Celos. And so you've been telling people that it's going to go up, and suddenly the stock starts to go up. Why does it go up? Because there's an increased demand in the shares. So it starts to go up, go up, 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 up. And suddenly the $1 share of Celos becomes $2. And people are like, oh my God, that fucking crazy person on the internet was actually right. It is about to go to $10 a share. And then a whole bunch of people buy it. And then by the time it's at $10, every single person who bought at $1.12, who, by the way, they bought a lot over the over the few months and low volume, they already dumped it. So while you were buying, they were selling. And at $9 a share, it comes out that Silos is a scam. And now you're bag holding and your stock is worth nothing because at $1, it was generously priced as a speculative stock. My point is, that's how a lot of stocks work. That's how the world works. In a nutshell, working at a hedge fund taught me more about life than probably any other job I've ever had. What I'll tell you very clearly is that's a lot of ways how social media works. And the point that my mentor was making, you're the product. You're not the consumer anymore. You're the product. You're what they're selling. Do you ever wonder why Facebook is free? Do you ever wonder why Instagram is free? Why TikTok is free? Oh, it's such a great deal. It's not free. You're paying for it with your time. They're making money off your ass. Every single time you get afraid, they got you. Do you know what people are way more likely to do when they're afraid? They're way more likely to be negative. They're way more likely to smoke, drink. They're way more likely to neglect their health. They're way more likely to isolate themselves. When people are isolated, they're way more likely to be purchasers. My God, they're turning you into zombies, man. And I'm not trying to act like a conspiracy theorist. This shit is absolutely 100% true. I'm not saying there's a war on for your mind or some shit like that. I'm not Alex Jones. I'm not telling you that. I'm just telling you that right now, every fucking thing on earth has been weaponized to make you a product, and quite frankly, a dumb product. Long form content is dead. So you're pretty much trained to take all information into very bite sized pieces. And so a headline like RJ Barrett allegations or anything like that is all it takes. People aren't going to read the articles. People aren't going to read, the lawsuit that's probably going to be filed. They're not going to read the clearance on it. And it's very easy. It's digestible. It's very difficult to learn anything in a 1 minute package. You know what I mean? It's very difficult. So I think you need to train your brain to digest long form content. I really do. I think you need to train your brain to have that kind of energy to focus on something for a couple of hours and really dig into it. I think you need to train yourself to read a little bit more, and not just read like random basketball articles, but like read like novels and, without interruptions. I think meditation helps. I really do. What was the point of this live? The point of this live was that nothing good comes from doom scrolling, and nothing good comes from believing baseless accusations on Twitter and running wild with it. Nothing good comes from quote tweeting something that you think is ridiculous, trying to get ahead of it by telling everyone how great you are because you also think it's ridiculous because you are technically propping up the very same thing that you are so morally outraged against. Do you know what I mean? Like social media is like a virtue signaling contest at this point. That's really all it is. That's like, oh, you know, like I watched a video today of a child predator or whatever getting hit over the head by some dude with a pumpkin. And there's like a whole bunch of people saying, yeah, this guy got what he deserved. And then there's another section of people saying, like, oh my God, these people are just violent. And you're just like, what the fuck is this app? Like, what is this app? Like, what am I watching here? There's just a random guy. Okay. Now I don't know if he's a child. I don't know if he's a child predator. I don't know what the fuck this guy is. For all I know, this is a video that's been repurposed from like 10 years ago, of a guy getting hit across the head with a pumpkin. He won't be the first person or the last person in the world to get hit by a pumpkin. And everyone's just said this is a child predator who's gotten hit by a pumpkin. Now, fuck, man. Like, I don't know. It's so weird to me. This entire, platform, this entire app is so weird to me. So this Thanksgiving, honestly, man, stay off your phone. If you have a family, if you're blessed enough to have a family, stay off your phone. One of the most beautiful things about the Raptors is when they go to dinners, Darko Rajakovic encourages everybody to put their phones away. I love that. I really do. Tariq saying social media has robbed people's brains. It has. They've done studies on people's brains after like extended social media use. Your brain is literally rotting, man. It's rotting. You need that thing. Trust me, you do. You don't want to have Alzheimer's. You don't want to have dementia. You don't want to fucking lose you don't want to peak mentally in your early 20s, do you? You need to keep that shit sharp, right? And here's the good news. Your brain's pretty elastic. So fix your diet, fix some exercise, stop ingesting negative content, take a break from social media, unplug. I cannot remember the last time I posted on Facebook. I used to be very avid. I used to like post like everything I'm doing, everything I'm thinking. I just don't do that. I mean, I think part of it is because I have these lives to share my thoughts, but it's great to be connected. I'm telling you, social media is not connection. Phone up your friend and have a coffee. Go meet up in real life. I think the pandemic did something to us where it sort of made us afraid to interact with each other in public sometimes. So just, meet up with people, have some fun, like but you don't have to like how often, my girlfriend was telling me she really wanted to see Hans Zimmer, right? So she went to San Francisco and she ended up seeing Hans Zimmer there. And the whole time she was like trying to record the freaking concert and I told her not to. And she said she did it for me. She's like, "Yeah, different." I'm like, "I already seen Hans Zimmer. I already seen Hans Zimmer. I don't know why you did that." And then she came back and she's like, "You know what? I want to see Hans Zimmer again, but this time I'm not bringing my cell phone." There is that feeling of like, what if I forget it? I have to post it. I have to share it. No, man, just enjoy it. Just enjoy it. You know what the beautiful part is? Someone in the 1800s, they couldn't plug into social media because it didn't exist. They couldn't plug into the internet because it didn't exist. They didn't have Wi-Fi because it didn't exist. But you know what? You can actually unplug from social media. You can unplug your Wi-Fi. At night, you can unplug your Wi-Fi. I'm pretty sure there's an app where you can program your Wi-Fi to literally go off at certain points where you don't have it anymore. I'm gonna tell you, like, if we have a kid, I'm gonna tell you straight up, like, there are gonna be dark periods of no internet. Like, there's gonna be like a internet from like 7 o'clock to 9 o'clock, and that's it. Like this shit, you know, I used to watch the show Boy Meets World, and I remember Mr. Feeney was like a really, I love Mr. Feeney, and he used to talk about like how back in Gutenberg's days when the printing press was, created, how people thirsted for a new book every 6 months, and how we get a new web page every 6 seconds. Now that show is from the '90s. We get a new web page every 6 milliseconds. Everything is on your computer now. You have no idea. Kids who are 20 today, they will never know the painful sound of dial up internet, bro. You will never understand setting a movie to download and seeing 18 hours later. Now, you can get a movie onto your freaking hard disk in like 12 seconds. 12 seconds, like a minute and a half. And you think that's a good thing. You think Amazon's good for you. You think it's good that you can just put up on your phone and be like, I want this now and get it. You think that's good. You think getting everything easily is good. What you don't realize is that the things that you really, really want connection, family, trust, good friendships, real meaning in your career. None of these things are easy. None of these things are as easy as ordering something on Amazon. The problem is every single thing that's easy gives you dopamine. It's like training you to get something quickly. You know what I mean? You don't have to walk to the store. You can drive to the store. Technology made your life easier, right? You don't have to you don't have to go and see your friend an hour and a half away. You can literally FaceTime them. Technology made your life easier. You don't have to sift through, you don't have to go to the convenience store, get a newspaper, read an entire article. You can literally scroll on your phone and boom, some jackass is summarizing the whole article for you in less than 40 characters, 80 characters. Great. I have all the information. I didn't have to work for any of it though. And you think that's a good thing because it made your life easier. But maybe sometimes something that makes your life easier isn't necessarily great for you. Have you ever thought of that? Maybe sometimes it's important because everything you want is on the other side of a really difficult conversation that you have to have either with somebody else or with yourself. I hope this live has been meaningful to you. And again, if you don't see a price tag you're the product. 100% of the time, that is true. So I hope you have a great long weekend. And I really hope that this bullshit on social media does not become a distraction for the Toronto Raptors. The allegation itself is pretty meaningless, but when armed with the gasoline that is Raptors Twitter, I think it can spiral out of control really quickly, and I really hope it doesn't. Therese saying, Rob, you're right. COVID really changed the world. Yeah, it did. Great live, Rob. Thanks, Broski. Thank you guys for tuning in at 2 a.m. I'll catch you guys later. Have a good night. Enjoy. And by the way, if any of you want to watch this movie, I very much recommend it. And I'm going to share with you very honestly what my reaction was to this movie when I was watching it. I did not expect this to happen. And I'm going to share very briefly with you. We're 40 minutes into this live. I don't expect anyone to get this far into it because it's a little bit dry and rambly, but I'm going to share with the 120 of you what my reaction was to watching this movie. I turned it on and it's on Tubi. I think it's on Tubi. I think most people have Tubi. Tubi is free. There you go. There's another thing. Technology's made your life so friggin' easy. You used to have to go and buy DVDs and VHS and go to the cinema, but again, easy, easy, easy. Now you have 10,000 movies on your smart TV. Okay. So let's use technology for good here. This movie is amazing. It is from 1982. It is very critically well reviewed. I think it has 91% on Rotten Tomatoes. Do you know how much technology I just used to describe that one sentence? My God. Tubi, Rotten Tomatoes, internet. It's all internet. Okay. So we turned this on and we were watching it. And I think within about a minute, Philip Glass is like my favorite composer ever, ever, ever. Like since I was a kid, Philip Glass is like my hero. So the fact that he scored this entire film is immediately very, very deeply entrancing and somewhat meaningful to me. Nevertheless, I expected this movie to be a bit of a snooze fest, and it wasn't. I watched it, and the images started to almost make me hallucinate to the point where I started to feel like I was being hypnotized. So the problem with Tubi is there are ads, right? So I was very cognizant that even if, there was like anyways, point being, I'm watching this movie and suddenly I can't breathe. I can't move. I can't blink. I was just stuck. Like I felt like my soul like leave my body and I was just like in the movie. Like you're moving through these vast environments, you're moving through rivers and you're seeing all of nature and man and technology and all of these images and there's no characters, there's no real dialogue, it's just music over images. But there's such a strong visual language to it that I just found myself honestly unable to move. And my girlfriend looked over at me and she was really worried. She tells me after that she tried to like, tap me, but I just wasn't hearing it. And I couldn't blink. And I couldn't blink for about, I don't know how long. I don't think I blinked the entire movie. And I just like, I felt like my eyes starting to swell up because what this movie felt like was looking at the world from a completely different perspective that I had never seen before. It felt like I was an alien seeing planet Earth for the first time, even though I'd lived on this planet. I've been to 22 different countries and I've traveled a lot. I felt like for the first time I was seeing man and the planet from a completely different perspective, and it was very trippy. This movie is probably, if you're on an acid trip or something, it's like a great movie for that or something. But I can't tell you how deeply transformative and spiritually transformative a film like this is. It is part of a trilogy. It is great. It is a masterpiece. If ever there was a masterpiece, this is it. And you know, there are a few movies that have done this to me in my life, like where I just felt so transfixed and I couldn't breathe after, and I really just felt like transported, and I didn't think about anything else, and it was just total 100% immersion. And if you ask me about, a separation by Oscar Fahadi, like I could probably like tell you every single scene, what the characters were wearing. It was just so immersive, like you couldn't see anything. That was just there. It was like that was the screen, and that was it. And I'll also share with you guys something also really interesting as it pertains to cinema. Anyways, all of that to say, I highly recommend this movie. I'll also share with you guys something, and this is not confirmed yet. So I'll just, some of you know that I run a film festival, and there was a film that I saw a trailer for a couple of months ago, you know, and it's about basketball. And I realized how much the Pensar basketball community supported Penn Dance last year. And I kept thinking to myself, wouldn't it be great if we had just a great basketball movie at Penn Dance? That would be fucking awesome because I run Pensar basketball. So much of our audience would be interested in that kind of movie. We could freaking sell that thing out like easy. And I saw this trailer for this movie about Minnesota basketball, about Chet Holmgren and Paige Beckers and just the rise of Minnesota basketball. And it's so interesting because it's a hockey state. Canada's a hockey country. Canada's rising in basketball. Minnesota's rising in basketball. It was like that's so adjacent to what we're going through here. And I remember watching that trailer and thinking, oh my God, this movie would be so perfect for Penn Dance. I didn't reach out to them. I mean, I didn't. And I had no idea who the filmmaker was. I completely forgot about it. Just filed it in my mind as nice to know. Didn't think about it again. And then yesterday, they actually submitted. And I was like, oh man, I hope this movie is good. I mean, we would never program a film just because it's about basketball, but I really hope the movie's good, man. It has a whole bunch of interviews with NBA players and stuff like that, and it looks great. It looks fucking awesome, and like I really like a lot of the players who did come from Minnesota to begin with. Paige Beckers is easily my favorite. Paige and Juju are my favorite, female hoopers on the planet right now. So, man, I really hope it's a great film, and if it is a great film, it'll be at Penn Dance, so that'll be great. You know. Anyways, uh, Tariq saying, "Did you see MJ embracing VC, congratulating him? That was cool." Yes, I did. I posted about it and on social media. Oh man, yeah, it was great. It was great. There's two Tar Heels, two North Carolina Tar Heels, two 6'6" super popular athletes, two Olympians, two American Olympians, two of the greatest dunkers of all time, two 6'6" guards from North Carolina. I mean, the parallels obviously pretty much end there, right? But two of the greater offensive players in NBA history embracing that way, and Vince with his daughter and his mother there meeting Michael Jordan, that was really cool. So yeah. Tariq saying, Rob, when you going back on PC? No idea. Probably this week, maybe next week. No idea. I never know. I never know. I don't get the schedule until like Sunday night or something like that. So we'll see. And I never know when I've extended my welcome. I'm not, I'm I'm never I never feel like sometimes I have these really controversial shows on PC, like the last one I crashed out over the coaches and I was like really upset about Jordy Fernandez. I never know when I step on too many toes where they're going to be like, all right, it's time to ban this guy for a month. Kemper saying, how did you go about finding your mentor? It's a great question. So I've had a few mentors in my life, and largely it was one of them was very fortunate. I just reached out to somebody to interview them for Pensar Films, and they ended up wanting to meet up for coffee. And I just asked them, like, would you agree to do something like this? One of them was through work, and one of them was actually through my uncle. So yeah. Tariq saying, I feel like you can't stand Swiper sometimes. Sometimes. All the time. No, Swiper's cool. Swiper's cool. They're all cool. Like I love PC. I really do. Like I understand that sometimes it can get a little bit irritating and some of the takes are kind of wild and whatever, but I really enjoy it. I've never been told to shut up. I've never been told to censor myself. And I love that. I mean, honestly, like one of my biggest beefs with, like people often ask me, like, would I ever consider wanting to do something with Sportsnet or TSN or one of these big broadcast stuffs? And I always feel like whenever I've talked to these people behind the scenes, I always get this feeling that I have to morph myself into somebody that I'm not. Like if you've seen that cringe thing with Sam Mitchell over the last 24 hours, you'll understand what I mean. Like they're not having that. Like you drop an F bomb on air, you're done. So for me, it's very, very important just for my peace of mind and for my sleep that I be myself, right? It's very important. I feel I can be myself here. I'm not definitely not going to be somebody else. And I feel like I'm allowed to do that on PC as well. So it's really good. So I'm really deeply appreciative of that. It's a paid opportunity to be able to express myself to a completely different audience. I learn a lot from that process. It's sometimes it's a little bit stressful, a little bit hectic with the chat, but it's overall very good. Anyways, I wish you guys a great night. It is 2:11. I'll see you guys tomorrow. I was supposed to go to the Thanksgiving dinner. I let them know that the Raptors facing the Boston Celtics was unfortunately too much to pass up on. So I will do the live and then I will go to the dinner after the dinner. So the game ends at about 9:40. I'm gonna do like a 45-minute live and then I'm gonna Uber over to the dinner after. So, you know, W commitment from Pensar basketball to the Raptors. Also, the Boston Celtics blew out the Philadelphia 76ers tonight by 50 points. So I have a feeling that their starters are not going to play tomorrow. That's just a nudging guess. So if that is the case, if that is in fact the case, then I suspect that the Raptors, especially if Emmanuel quickly plays and Scotty Barnes plays, will win that game. So maybe we'll hear the massive overreaction from all of Raptors Twitter at how great this team is, or maybe people would just be like, it doesn't count because they rested X guy and Y guy or whatever. Tariq saying Scotty versus Tatum, can't wait to. I didn't watch the game, but someone said Tatum's jump shot is fixed. Can someone confirm that? Is that true? I don't know. I mean, honestly, don't expect Jason Tatum to play. I feel like Jason Tatum's probably not going to play. And honestly, I don't really care. I hope you guys understand. Preseason doesn't matter. It's not important. These results don't matter. Guys are just trying to go out there, get some reps, and not trying to get hurt. No coach is showing their playbook. The Raptors are certainly not showing their defensive, all of their defensive coverages and their defensive playbook. They're not running any of their real main offensive sets. They're not really showing. They're experimenting with lineups at this point. I would expect the final preseason game maybe to be a pretty good litmus test of what we'll probably see on opening night. But right now, like we just saw the Sixers get blown out by 50 points on the road, and they didn't play their starters. Like they're not going to do that. They're not going to give. They're not even going to give the Boston Celtics a chance to tune up against their big three. But honestly, like these don't matter. You don't think Joel Embiid is in the is on you don't think I hope Sixers fans are not friggin', going nuts on Twitter right now saying, "Oh my god, we're so terrible." Yeah. Anyways, talk to y'all later. Have a good one and good night.